even basically mounting things in a chuck, you know, make sure that tenon is straight and square, and that your jaws of your chuck, which don't have one out that I can show you real easily, are mounted in there so there's no gaps between the jaws. You don't want your tenon too long to where the tenon bottoms out in the jaws. You want to make sure that the base of the bowl or box or whatever you're turning with a tenon is against the jaws. And you want the jaws, you don't have to have them closed all the way, but the closer they are to the full circle, the better grip you have. If you have a large tenon and you got the jaws, only the points of the jaws are gripping, that's not the best way to mount. One other thing I forgot to mention, there is coffee and cookies in there and some kind of little candies that David brought. I'm not sure what they are.
Chocolate, hazelnut.
Ooh, okay. I may have to talk quick so I can go get one. But anyway, so like I said, the main thing you want to watch is that you're getting stuff square in there. I brought a few things that I have. This is one that is a little, actually it is a chuck that I bought a while back, and I'm not sure I can really do it on here, but these jaws expand out as you turn them in. So you drill, and it even came with a drill bit, a 1 3/8 inch hole, and you drill the hole in the whatever you're going to mount, and then that goes in. And because this is made to be used free, you don't use a tailstock normally. You have to use a drawbar. And this is a threaded rod that screws in through the shaft, and you tighten it down so that this can't come out when you're turning. So that drawbar just holds it in there, a washer. This was set up for my Nova lathe, so I don't know if it would reach. I don't think that would reach that far in here. So you set them up for your own lathe. But what this does, and I forgot to do it, so I was up here drilling earlier, is you drill the hole in there. Chase him, get the light here. You drill, and it's not a very good hole doing it by hand, but drill press would have been better, and a sharp bit would have been even better. But basically, drill a hole. That's in your lathe, and then you just hold this on here, and you can tighten it. Those jaws expand out.
What was this thing called again?
An expansion chuck. I don't know the exact name of it, honestly.
Who makes it, Bill?
I don't remember. I think I got it probably from like Penn State or something. And I just, like I said, I grabbed this piece of wood out back there. I was going to do something and I forgot. But that'll hold it in there. Again, you have the rod in here, and then you're free to work around this. And it actually holds pretty good. And I can pass this around. The jaws are serrated so that they help hold it. But again, you have to remember to use the drawbar. I don't see a name on it, and I didn't think to look before I came. But I'll pass this around. Like I said, you just rotate it, and you can see the gap, so these jaws expand in there. Yeah. I don't know. You wouldn't want to do anything real big. You would, much more than the size of this block. It's not made for heavy duty, large pieces. The bolt in there, it's got a tapered screw head on there. It's not a real big diameter. It may be a 1/4 inch bolt, so that's all it's really holding it. So you don't want a huge box in there or bowl on there. It's made for small items. I don't remember where I bought it. So that's one thing. Somebody had asked about turning, I think it was like a triangular box or a triangular item, and how to do that, how to mount it. I grabbed a block of wood. This is not perfect from home. But what you can do is, if you want to turn this, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, Jimmy Clues, because the box, you can mount it, and so it turns this way. When you turn it, you end up with a three-pointed bowl dish. And so what you do to start that is you actually just put the corner in here, bring up your tailstock, and again, this is not real square, so it's not going to work real well. And you just got a friction fit in there. And then you turn your lathe on, and you can start turning. And what you would do is, if you're going to do one like that, is you would turn a tenon on this side that would fit into your jaws of your chuck. But that's all it holds, is just right into the shaft there. And then this is just and there's different ones. This happens to be a Nova live center that you can knock that center out and use that hole right there just to clamp it down in there. And I encourage anybody else has anything that throughout this that they want to contribute items that they have, please feel free to speak up. A lot of you guys may have cold jaws. I'm sorry, go ahead, David.
If you're turning a box like you just demonstrated,
Mm-hmm.
does anybody know how important it is to have that be a perfect cube?
Yeah, if you're going to do that, you want it as square as possible. That's why that one was not something I would use. That was just a block of wood. And in fact, this one has a big crack in it, so I wouldn't use that anyway. I just brought it to show you how you can mount it that way. Jimmy Clues, if you look for him, you can find his boxes, his triangular. I forget what he calls it, three-pointed, or I can't remember exactly what he calls it. But Jimmy has one, and you may be able to find a video on it. I demonstrated one here once, but I don't think we have a video on it. I think it was before we were recording them. So a lot of you guys may have cold jaws. Some of you may not have seen these. That's what these are called, are cold jaws. They're great. They bolt onto your chuck. They've got these rubber bumpers. I don't know what you'd call them, but they clamp down on the outside of the bowl. They're great for turning the bowl over and turning the foot off, or doing embellishing around the bottom or whatever after you've turned it. So that just mounts on your lathe as normal and just clamps down on there. These are kind of short. They have some with longer ones. They don't hold real strong, so again, it's not something you're going to be aggressive on. This particular bowl had been sitting for a while, and it's pretty warped, so it's not even flush on there. So I just stuck it in there to show how it mounts, but this would not be a good one on here. Some actually bookmarks that I made a few of. And it's just got this little tab, so you slip it on page, and they're real popular for teacher gifts and stuff, but you can turn something to mount there. But trying to figure out how to mount something to turn to that diameter, I was trying to figure out what I could do. So simple solution, ended up with just a piece of steel that I can clamp in my jaws of my chuck, double-sided tape, and just tape it on there and turn it and then peel it off and get the right size diameter. So that's just a piece of probably 3/4 inch steel bar that I just put in my jaws. So it can be something as simple as that. And speaking of double-sided tape, do you guys use double-sided tape for anything? Is it carpet tape, or what do you use, Don? Yeah, I think that's what this is. May have been from Lowe's or somewhere, but this is a double-sided tape. Just cut it off and peel it. Shoot, I didn't bring any scissors here. Let me see if I can tear this. One of the things, and I think it was, I can't remember who it was, whether it was Janice Levi or Cindy Drozder, or somebody showed this little trick, because those of you that use double-sided tape, and I hope this will work. it's always very difficult to peel that off. You guys ever have a problem with that? And this was a little trick that she showed. You just take and put a little cut there, and then you can, if I can get it to stick to the wood that's probably dusty. Just get that little tab up, and then it comes off pretty easy.
You can also take your fingernail and get right on the corner of it and pull the corner of it away from it, and it will stretch that
Oh,
stuff. When it stretches it, it'll curl up, then you can take it and pick it up.
okay. So another idea. Another, turn bottle stoppers. This is the actual part that goes in the bottle. You turn there. You can buy these. That doesn't fit on this one because it's a smaller one, but you can drill your blank, thread it. It'll screw on here, and then you turn on that. So that's just another holding method. You can do it for use it for other things too. That happens to have that size. Some of the ice cream scoop handles and stuff have the same size thread, so you can could actually use it on there. So this I got at one of the estate sales from one of our former members that had passed away. They were cleaning out his shop, and that's where I got that little mandrel. So that works well. And then one last thing is not really for turning, but if you do any embellishing and you want to hold the piece, to do your embellishing. See if I can get this off here real quick. This is made by Trent Bosch, and it will fit right in your 1 inch, or he actually has them smaller too, and it's just a device to hold your chuck. So if you wanted to do any carving or anything on here, you can move it around and it, stand here, and it really holds it well. You can pivot it around, it moves up and down, you can rotate it. So it works really well if you're going to do any embellishing on there. It's great to hold. This one, I actually have a tripod at home, so it'll fit. It's a lot lower. It'll fit in there, and I can actually sit down and do it at the tripod. Holds it pretty well too. So.
What's it called?
It's made by Trent Bosch. It's a portable carving stand, is what he calls it. And you can get the different, whatever, depends on what size chuck you have. They've got them for this is a 1 3/4, 8 I think it is, and they have it the 1 inch by 8 also. So it was really handy. And I think that's all I've got. So, Sammy, you ready? There's just so many different ways to mount items, and a lot of it's just trying to think through the process of what you're trying to do.
One of the basic things that I think everybody uses is the spur drive. I've seen a lot of people that will take their spur drive and their wooden mallet. I'm hoping they use a wooden mallet, not a ball peen hammer, which is a no-no because it will mess up your drive, and just actually beat this thing to death to try to get it in there. And that is not, all of that is not necessary. If you put your drive in here, I don't have a center in here yet, so I'm just going to pretend that I do, okay? If you will just put your center pretend we have a live center here. We don't, just play like we do, okay? And just lock it up and then lock your spindle and then shake this. just rattle it back and forth, and it opens up those 4 points in there. And then tighten it up again and shake it and do it again, and it's going to be locked in place. Unlock it, and you're ready to go. You don't have to beat it to death, but it wakes up my dog, so she don't like it when I do all that. So anyway, that's going to lock it in place pretty good. I guess the next thing we're going to have is the chuck, which is a very common use that we have to lock things in place. But the tenon is probably the problem that a lot of people have as far as when they start throwing things in the floor. How many of you have thrown something in the floor in the last year or two? Probably everybody, right? Yeah, we do. We still do. We all do. One of the key things is, and Phil touched this earlier, is to have a good square tenon. This face, can you see where I am here? The face of this needs to be flat, and the tenon itself needs to be a good crisp 90, so it will not mess up. And you don't want to leave a radius in there. So what I've done, I did this yesterday. I made a good, on this little block of wood, I have a good tenon and I have a bad tenon. I'm going to pass this around, and I brought this little square so you could see. And you want the face to be concave just a little bit, because you want the face of your jaws to actually touch on the outside edge right here. So I brought this just so you could see that you can see light between this face and the tenon itself. And that's kind of what you want. You want to be able to, you want it to touch out on the outside edges here. Now, on this one right here, it's not. It wobbles. And that's the common mistake that we all do from time to time, and that's not a good seat. And I also left a radius in the bottom. So that doesn't allow your chuck to fit up square. So you got two things going wrong. This shoulder is not square, and neither is not a good 90 in there. I left a radius. So that is going to allow you to throw something in the floor pretty quick. You understand what I'm saying there? You look at me like, boy, you just lost me.
Watch this.
Watch this. All right. Let me hear this.
He's got technology.
I have heard from day one, you put a slight dovetail on that tenon to keep it from coming out of there.
Do you have a dovetail chuck?
You know, I can turn this off now.
If you have a dovetail chuck, you want to put a dovetail tenon. If you don't have a dovetail chuck, like this one is a square chuck, there's no need in putting a dovetail. You want a good square tenon, so all of this jaw will touch. Turn your speaker on before you say something. Yes, sir.
It's not a dovetail chuck.
Dovetail jaws. Dovetail jaws. Dovetail jaws. If you have dovetail jaws on your chuck,
So I was just giving half the information. If it's a dovetail,
no, you only listen to half of it, probably.
can I turn this off now?
You may turn that off. Here, look at this. I'm gonna pass this around. So the one with the check mark is the good one. The one with the X is not the good one. That's the one you don't want to do. Okay? All right, the next most common thing is probably the face plate. Does anybody still use a face plate? Very much? A lot of face plate users. Good. One of the do's and don'ts on the face plate is, I'm going to get to the screws in a minute, but one of the things is you want a fairly flat surface on your face plate. You don't want it to teeter-totter any at all. And this one right here, this surface is okay. So the entire face is actually touching the wood. If I flip it over on this side, you see it rocks. And that's what you don't want. Because if you put a screw in here, it's going to lock it on this side, then you got an 1/8 of an inch gap over here. So you want it to be flush or concave, which I think this one is. And this just happens to be off the bandsaw. I just got lucky on that one, but that one works pretty well. And that's the side you want your faceplate side to be as flat as possible.
Sam, if you flip it over, I can actually get the light coming through to show the crack. Not doing it now. I did it while ago. Sorry about that.
Where's the camera? Now, can you see the crack? So you don't want that. Yeah, say no to crack. You don't want that. As far as the screws, I use, and there's a lot of, I can only think of one don't to do with a faceplate. Don't use drywall screws. Drywall screws are very, very brittle. They will snap off really quick, and you're going to have a hard time getting that out of the wood. I use sheet metal screws. I learned a long time ago in one of my early classes that the sheet metal screw has a different pitch in the threads than a wood screw does. Therefore, it gives it a lot more grip, a lot more bite. And I think these are number 12. And you just want to get the length that would fit through your faceplate and actually give you enough in your wood to hold it in place. And the faceplate, when you do use a faceplate, you want to hide or take out not hide, you want to take away your screw holes. You don't want the buyer to see that you have 8 plates, eight holes in the bottom of your bowl that you didn't turn out. So leave you enough wood there so you can remove that. And somebody said one time, this stuff comes on trees, so you're not wasting it. Just go ahead and take it out. Take those holes out. Question?
Yeah, what if you have a screw break off in there? Is there any good technique to get that screw out?
No.
Okay.
Depending on what size screw it is. I haven't had to use an ease out on anything like this before, but you might have to carve around it. If you have enough wood, carve around there with your carving tool and leave enough metal there so you could get it out with a pair of pliers, maybe vice grips. I've done that a time or two, but I haven't used a faceplate in several years now, so I haven't had experience.
Have you ever had sheet metal screw break?
No.
I think I was using a wood screw.
Yeah, those. And a lot of people say, use stainless steel, go to stainless steel. Stainless steel is not necessarily the hardest or the least breakable out there. So that's not the answer. You just want a good screw with a good pitch thread that's not going to break. Yes, sir.
Back up a little bit.
Okay.
When you were talking about the spur drive, you talking about if you're doing it in the bark, drilling the hole. Now, so it's in the
Yes. Good. I'm glad like on a natural edge bowl. If you're going to use a natural edge, turn in a natural edge bowl, you put it in. There's nothing up here with bark on it, is it? If you were going to turn a natural edge bowl, the first thing you're going to do is put the bark side up against the headstock, right? So you can turn a tenon on the other side. This does not bite very good in the bark and the sapwood because that is extremely soft. So I take it and turn it upside down and put with the bark up on my drill press and cut a hole in it, drill a hole in it the same size as this where I want it to go. And that way I go all the way through the bark, all the way through the sapwood into the heartwood. And now you got good penetration here. There you go. You got good penetration with your spur drive. If not, it's going to come out. So I put it on the drill. If I were gonna do a natural edge bowl, see, it's gonna go in the chuck like so. Okay, I'm gonna turn this around and put a tenon right here, and then I would turn around and work on this side. I would come right here and drill a hole right in the center, all the way through till I get to heartwood, and now that heartwood is gonna hold that in place pretty good without it coming loose. Yes, sir. What you're doing is exactly what I have done in the past. If it's too big to get into the throat of the drill press, yes, yeah, take your. I've got a battery powered chainsaw that I've kind of cut out the middle a little bit, so and dish it out. So just remove that bark and that sapwood. Yeah, or your grinder would take it out too. But you just don't want to put this into your bark or the sapwood, because that's the softest part and it's going to come out. Yes, sir. You got the mic in hand. You must be ready. And Bill?
Going back to the faceplate, after removing the bark on the piece of wood that's not level, if you're doing a log, can you tighten down one side where you think it's level and put the other screw and balance the fit on the right side?
I see. I know what you're saying. Try to balance it out, and not screw it all the way down. But if it's not seated all the way down, you got that chance of it flexing and breaking that screw head off, and then you got to deal with that screw in there. So the best thing to do is try to get this as flat as possible. If you can, it's going to be a lot easier. Even with your carving tool, your grinder, grind that hump out where it's convexed. Take that out and try to make it flat. It's going to work a lot better.
Is this on?
I can hear you.
What I've done sometimes, if the blanket's not too terribly wet, I take a hand plane, and you can just kind
There you
of
go.
plane the area around there till you get it kind of flat. And then even if you get it flat enough, you can use a worm screw instead of a spur drive.
Yep, that's right. That's good. Worm screw is the next topic, so that's great. Question?
For me, part of that hole is not just those screws in there, but the friction of that solid contact with that faceplate against the workpiece. That's something that can't be overlooked there.
You're right. That's just like having a good a good square edge for your chuck. Yep. Okay. Spur drive. Has anybody used a spur drive? You got a question? Yes, sir.
In my ignorance, when you say natural edge bowl, what are you talking about exactly?
What am I
When you say natural, when you're doing a natural edge bowl.
What am I talking about? Is there a natural edge bowl back there that we could borrow? Okay, there's a natural edge bowl right there. So it still has the bark on the rim. So when you turn a natural edge bowl, instead of a traditional bowl, it's going to be cut from this area right here. Okay, this is going to be the interior. Your tenon's going to go here. You reverse your wood, and you put it in this way. So now you're going to turn this off round and put your tenon right here. And then turn it around and chuck on that, and now you're going to turn this inside out, and it's going to leave that natural rim right there with the bark on it. That's the natural edge bowl.
The traditional thought is leave bark, but you don't have to have bark. You can
No,
take all the bark off and use a black marker on it or something.
or just leave it natural. How many people use a spur drive? The worm screw. Everybody, that's good. That's good. I don't. Very much. I take that back. I do on some smaller things, but these things are incredibly strong. And if anybody goes to TAW this weekend, Ashley Harwood is going to be demonstrating her bowl turning technique, which is one of her demos, and she will turn a 14-inch bowl with the worm screw. So they're very strong. It's very. You can get pretty darn aggressive with it. And the benefit of that, if this bowl blank, well, I'm just going to I'll use this one. If you had a blank on here, you're going to drill a hole. I drill a 27/64 is what I drilled in this one. It's just the size under 7/16, and that's going to give you a good bite on most of your worm screws. And I didn't want this hole to go very deep, because when I do use the worm screw, it's for turning one of these little discs that I carve on. So I don't have a lot of depth. I don't have a lot of depth and this would go all the way through to the other side. So I don't want to do that. So I use this spacer. So that allows me a smaller hole. So if y'all have already done this. Yes, sir.
Didn't you tell me you could use a minimum of a half an inch into your wood? Half an inch of the worm screw? Really necessary more than that?
I don't know that I've ever said that or not.
You did, I thought. But my question to you was, what's the minimum amount of worm screw one needs to hold that piece of wood?
Well, I probably have a half inch, maybe 5/8 right here. So that's going to work. That would work on something this small. But if I were going to do like Ashley Harwood and turn a 12-inch bowl, I would want every bit of it, because all of that's going to come out anyway. But on something this shallow, I can't go that deep, because I want some wood left back here. So you got to think about how much, what size bowl you're working on.
And also you need to have tailstock support.
Yeah,
You don't have much,
right.
help you out much.
And Ashley would do that. She's going to bring up her tailstock, so she's got support, and she will have a big, huge blank like this, but it's 12 or 13 inches in diameter and 5 inches thick. And she will put her tailstock in here for support to turn a tenon and start roughing it out. And then she will move this out of the way and complete her tenon and do a push cut, where regularly, if I did it the regular way between centers, I would end up doing a pull cut. But when she loves the push cut, so she uses the spur drive so she can come here and do the outside of her shape and get with the push cut, which is a very clean cut. And I turn mine on just a slow speed and then let go of it when it's right there. Now it needs one good turn, and that's going to lock it in place right there. And now it's good to go. So
How thick is that space?
I think that's 1/4 inch.
Again, you want it to be flat on the jaws of the chuck or on that spacer. You want
Yep.
to make sure your wood is flat and your spacer is flat.
Yes, sir.
The depth of that screw going into the wood, you need to consider the hardness of the wood. If it's a soft kind of wood, it needs to go deeper.
That's true.
If
That,
it's real hard, it grips it better and you're not gonna break out.
that is true. Sometimes
That's the thought.
it is, and the size drill you use too. On cherry, I always, in all of my disc for my classes that I turn like this are out of cherry, and it's a fairly good dense wood, and I always go one size below 7/16, which is the 27/64. But if I was going to do pecan, I would probably go ahead and do it to 7/16. It's hard. I've got to the point where I couldn't screw it on because it was too tight, and you don't want to deal with that either. Okay, I think everybody, if you were here when I did my thin turning demo, this is my jam chuck for the thin turning things, and that's the one that has the flashlight in the end of it. It works. The battery's not dead, is it? So it works. as just a pretty good jam chuck there. Any questions on the spur drive? Any more questions on the spur drive? I've got different size jam chucks, whatever you're working on, you might need a different size jam chuck. Yes, sir.
I think I've seen pictures of a spur drive that has 2 spurs instead of 4.
Mm-hmm.
Are those? Can you talk about that?
I was going to bring I have a two spur drive that I was going to bring, and I actually forgot to get it this morning.
Are they useful? And
They-
if so, what for?
The two, if any of you have seen the two, or some of you may have one. If you're like me, you buy stuff and use it one time and you put it in your drawer and you don't use it anymore. Guilty of that. The two spur drive, it's twice the size of this one, and it is more. There you go. There you go. See, it's much larger than the 4-prong. It is. It's for big work, heavy, aggressive turning. So if you were going to rough out a huge bowl, the 2 spurs is going to be a lot stronger than the 4. It's going to go in deeper. And it allows you to get really aggressive with it and rough that bowl out pretty quickly. I'm glad it's not me. Thank you, Gerald.
Well, you gotta make sure if you use that, you do it cross grain, not with grain.
That's right.
Split the wood
That's right. That's right. There is a difference there.
90 degrees to the ground.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I'm always concerned about when I see people take their mallet and beat that 4-prong in there. You keep on doing that enough, and you're going to create a crack in there, depending on where if that blade is actually whiffed in the cross grain, you might end up splitting that wood. So you got to be careful with that. Yes, sir.
Got the little spur drive that has any number of little small teeth all the way around it. So you talk about that.
I don't have one of those.
I use it all the time.
Good.
I use
Good.
it more than I used it for.
You gonna discuss that? You gonna discuss that?
I can.
Okay, good. Yeah, I don't have one. You don't. Well, if anybody's got into turning eggs, question? I thought I heard somebody say something. No. If anybody turns eggs, I came up with this jam chuck. I had a hard time trying to figure out how to clean off the 2 ends after I did it between centers. So I just made a jam chuck that goes in my chuck. I turn in between centers, and then I would put this in here, and it allows me to round off this end, and then turn it around, and you can bump it around just a little bit. That little nub is still there, so you can tap it and get it really, really true. Tighten your screw up right here, and you can finish it off. But I don't do that anymore. But that's an idea. It is a hose clamp, and I also take, if I'm going to do a lot of these, I have a big, thick. How many of you buy asparagus at the grocery store, the kind that has the big purple rubber band on it? Save those rubber bands. That rubber band will go over that hose clamp, and it keeps from busting your knuckles. It helps. Jam chuck. Okay, here we go. One more jam chuck. This is for turning spheres. I turn a sphere between centers, and Gerald, can I borrow is this yours? Clubs? Yours? I may borrow it. You wouldn't?
Just don't jam it in there.
Like that. I made this. I took the 3/4 nut, which is the size of the threads on this one-way live center, and I put it on my metal lathe and turned the square edges off, and then I drilled a hole to fit that and glued it. I'm not going to put it all the way on because I don't have the the pin to take it out.
Should be one over there.
Okay, okay.
Blade on the lathe.
It is. I'm good. I'm gonna leave it just like that. And I couldn't find a plain sphere, one that I had not done any embellishing on, so I brought this one, and my wife made sure I did not drop it or scuff it up. But this is one of the spheres that I turned between centers. A sphere is hard to turn. Have y'all tried turning a sphere? It's actually hard to get it round. It looks like an egg. Every time I did it, it turned out looking like an egg or a basketball somebody ran over. It was terrible. So it goes in between centers like this, and then you have these two nubs right here that you take off. And by making this little jam chuck, it locks it in place. So now it's all turning around except these 2 points right here. And now you can come back and round those over. So that helps you get a sphere out of your egg, kinda. Any questions on that? Y'all have already just discussed the I'm almost done. I'm fixing to get out of here. Phil has already taken care of the, oh, God.
Put that set down.
We won't leave it.
I'm not go-
That's on the video.
I'm not gonna look at it.
When you put it away, Sam, make sure that's on the back side.
Don't tell my wife. She told me not to bring it because I would drop it. Sir?
You made it though, correct?
I did. I can. Some of you have been to the open shop, have seen the ornament in the finial turning demo we did there, and this is now a permanent fixture because I cannot get it off. This yellow piece came from Rubber Chucky. It has a bearing in here with a 1/8 ID. So the bearing spins. So when you turn a finial for your birdhouse or your ornament or whatever, if you're going to turn a nice long finial, once you get it started and get a point on that end, then the point goes into the Rubber Chucky. So now you have support. Instead of turning it between centers and having a problem with it splitting, that's what is going to happen. That's what's going to happen when you turn very thin. It's going to have a split in the end of it, and it's going to be kind of shattered. This Rubber Chucky holds that end because it goes inside the Rubber Chucky on that bearing. So it's turning, and it's also supporting it. So it's almost like having your live center, your tailstock in there. So you can go ahead and turn the whole thing, and then when you get through, just sand that little tip on the end of it there where it kind of marred it up a little bit, and you're good to go. So that's a pretty handy little tool. Just don't tighten it up very tight because you can't get them off.
Don't tighten it too tight either, because that rubber will bust. Experience.
It will bust.
Experience.
Yeah, this will bust? Really? Well, mine is too tight and I can't get it off. So I hate that because this
Well, I'm talking about tighten it over.
okay, and this busted? You were doing some serious cranking down, weren't you? You must have been, wow. I thought I had one more thing here. the vacuum chuck. Here's a regular, here, I already had it out. This is my regular bowl, my gem chuck for my bowls. I've got two different sizes of tenons on here, so if I'm using my larger chuck for a large bowl, it will fit on this one, and if not, it will fit on this guy right here. But this will probably work for a 6-inch bowl all the way up to a 16-inch bowl, and this is the one chuck that I will use right here, and it works. It's very versatile, and it works great. Okay, the jam chuck, the Frugal, that's the name of it, Frugal vacuum chuck. Thank you. If you were going to get into the production and turn a lot of bowls and had a lot of the bottoms to turn off, this would really, really come in handy for you. And the only time I use this now is when I'm turning a lot of these. In fact, I'll start doing it next month. I've got a carving class coming up at the end of the month in North Carolina, and I will have to make about 15 or 20 of these. So I will put these on here like so, to turn the bottoms off. But the way the vacuum chuck operates is, I can't explain it because maybe Bill can. Bill's an old air conditioner expert. This is the vacuum, what do you call this? This is what sucks the freon from the unit itself, so it's a vacuum pump. It's a remodified vacuum pump from the guy called Frugal Vacuums, I think what it's called. I have it running, but I don't even have any vacuum on it yet. And it's already holding it in place. When I close that valve up, it's going to jump up to about 30 pounds, 25, 30. What is it? Inches of vacuum. Thank you, Bill. That's the reason I made sure Bill was coming today so he could give me some answers. So I'm using, if you were going to rough out several of these, this would really come in handy for roughing these out and then leaving the tenon on them. So you're going to put that up there and screw this in the same hole that you had it between centers to kind of help line it up and get it running. With it pulling a vacuum, it's trying to take it out of my hand and put it in place.
I found it easier to align without the vacuum.
Yeah, it's taking it away from me. It's got enough on it to pull it out of my hand. Okay, now it's in between centers. Turn this on, I can remove the center. There we go.
What's your reading you're getting?
Yep, one of those.
What's your reading?
Yep, it is. It's like 24 inches, right, Bill? Inches. Okay, so it's there. It's ready to turn. I can turn off the bottom, do what I want to with it. Yes, sir. You could, but buddy, it would work. It probably would work. Get a new one. Highly recommended a brand new one.
Where did you get this? Mine just came with a flat gasket.
You talking about this piece right here?
Got a piece of PVC with a gasket on it.
Right.
It's terrible to get it sealed all the way around.
Okay, that's what I had too. And the guy that owned the Frugal is called Frugal Vacuum System. And this guy took these vacuum pumps from the nursing homes, and he reworked them, and then he sells them. Okay, he's the one that had the PVC pipe on the MDF hardwood there. He had that, just a Home Depot 4-inch collar, coupling, I think's what it was, with the seal on the outside edge of it. That's what he sold with this piece. Another guy has bought his company. He's still using the same vacuum pump, but he designed this piece. This is handy because it has the hose and it works with any lathe out there. I mean, it's long enough to use, and it works with the hose that comes with the vacuum pump.
Sammy, do you know if he has a different website? Because I checked on frugal.com and it doesn't have that on it. Not quite as good a grip as you get here, because as you decrease, you get less pounds per square inch, but it does do the job.
Never haven't done that before. How finished does the inside of the bowl need to be?
This is a roughed out bowl that I did for one of my classes at John C. Campbell. This inside it was roughed out. I put it on the shelf to dry, and I have not touched it since. The inside of this is still rough, as in the first turning of the twice turning process. It is still rough, and you saw it had a vacuum on it. If you're turning a bowl that has wormholes in it, you're not going to get the vacuum that you were going to get normally because it's sucking air. Put a piece of masking tape over the hole, and you're good to go. It's gonna real porous wood, yeah. It's gonna suck through there. But a real thin bowl, it's gonna break it in 12 pieces.
All these platters that I turned,
Well, this is not for you grizzled veterans. It's more for the inexperienced woodturner like me that's just started. Sammy had something kind of similar to this where, well, let me back up. Before Christmas, I had a bunch of these rough pine 2x2s left over from a project. And I thought I would turn a bunch of Christmas trees and tops and acorns. And my problem was I like to get started on the cap end, and I put the stem, and then I'll do the little gnarling on there, and then I get my marker and I brown it up. And then I'll start to come down on the body. But when I get ready to part it off, I'm not as good as some of y'all doing this. And I was at Sammy's open workshop here recently where he had a box top. And he got a little thin blade, and he came down and he parted that thing down to like 1 fiber. And then of course you can just, sand that and finish it. Well, I'm just not that good. So what I've been doing is I'll get it down to this place and I'll part it off, and I'll have a rough nub on the end. So I'm trying to figure out, all right, well, how do I rechuck that without messing up my marking and my gnarls on the end of the cap? So what I came up with was a little compression ring. And
Can't see that camera. Put it on head stop.
which one are you? There we go. Hup. Chase you down everywhere. So anyway, I thought this was the original idea until Big Ron and Cowboy told me they've been doing this with PVC. Now, I haven't used PVC, but with wood being a little bit softer, I haven't had any problem chucking this up and then pulling this out and it not having any damage on the gnarling or rubbing my markings off.
Go ahead. I'm just adjusting the camera. It's too low for you.
You should just turn the camera off.
Looking up your nostrils.
So the way that I make these is I get one of these billets that we've been selling for $2 a foot, and I put a tenon on the end of it. I chuck it up, and then I measure the diameter of my cap. And this is what just happened to be 1.36. So I get a Forstner bit that's just equal to or less than that. So it's 1 1/4, and I just drilled into the face of that blank, and then I just turned it down just like a napkin ring. And before I got done, I'd get my hollowing tool, and I'd come in here and put a groove just on the inside of the lip. And part that off, And I ended up with the ring, which I then take to the scroll saw or my bandsaw and cut a little 3/16 inch gap out. And the nice thing about that, if I run 10, 15 of these things and they vary a little bit in size, this thing will squeeze down or expand out for me to stick it in there. And then I'll put that in the chuck, and the teeth of the jaws don't touch my acorn. They just will bite into the wood, and it holds it firm. And every acorn I've pulled out, it hasn't messed up that at all. So same thing with my tops or the acorns. I just love using these things. So I'm gonna pass this around, and when I get done, I end up with a really nice profile with a little tip on the end of the acorn, just like I want. I can sand it, polish it, all that.
Kind of have this little thing we do when we're demoing here at the ag, and of course we turn tops, acorns. Sometimes we do goblets. Every now and then a bowl, but usually not a bowl. And what I was talking to Rory about was I can do an acorn in less time than I can do a top. Rory, it takes him about 20 minutes because he keeps fussing with, that shape's not right. I said, well, just make it look kind of like an acorn. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, Mother Nature takes care of that. I don't have any wood, but this is an Elio drive, E-L-I-O. It has these two spurs and 3 screw holes, like a faceplate. It is a faceplate, but it goes in to your headstock. Now, what the spurs do is that allows you to balance a piece if you've got a piece that's round. I know what Sammy said, it's got to be flat, but with this, you can pull these spurs out and actually have an imbalanced piece that goes across like this. Then you put your screws in. You gotta put the screws in. Now, if you're doing it between centers, you can just use these spurs and drive it. I have done that. Or you can screw into it and use it like a faceplate. But this is both a drive and a faceplate. I've used that one a little bit. I don't like that as once you learn how, really you don't need it, but if anybody wants to buy one, I got another one. Okay. Let's see, it's still in here. How about that? Okay, these are Cindy Drose's points, and gosh, I forget how much these things cost. There's one with a little tiny point, a regular point, flat, and a cone. You see there's nothing inside that. That just goes in your live center for turning different things that she does and other aspects. But the smaller point, you're less likely to damage your wood and split it versus the cone, which we don't have. I thought we had one, but we don't. I usually have the small cone on mine. Now, this you can use 2 ways. You can put it on your live center like this, and you can have something go up in it, and it holds it without any marring at all. The other option is like this, like if you have a vase and you want to touch it up or something, you put the mouth up here, and that holds it so you can work on it. Make sense? I hope. And gosh, I looked this up this morning, and this is just one jaw. But if you want to work on the bottom of a plate or something, this pulls it out away from your headstock. This type jaw, it's called a long nose. I don't hardly ever use it, but it's nice to have if you ever do get in a situation where you need to work on the bottom again. Ideally, the thing is to finish the bottom before you turn it around. But, you know, sometimes things happen. Okay. These are interesting. This is rubber chucky too. Can you see the threads on the inside? And this goes right on here. It's a soft touch is another name for it. That's not what rubber chucky calls it, but that's what it is. If you want to buy one, I got a ton of them over here. But you can bring this up and you won't mar the surface that you've already finished. It's handy. It is really handy. Anyway, rubber chucky, and I forget what they call them. Okay, you've already seen this. This is Nova Jumbo Jaws, and it actually comes with 4 spurs, but I like it with 2. It has a screw right here. Yeah, there you can see it. And you can take these out and sharpen them, and you can adjust this point here. Where's it at? The screw right there, to adjust the length that point comes out. Sometimes you don't want it all the way out. You don't need it all the way out, but at any rate, that's a really handy deal. Direct threads on the spindle. And, well, there it goes. And it actually has a hole right there that you can put your chuck handle in to unscrew it. But this is really good for roughing out bowls. All right. We talked about faceplates, but we didn't talk about sacrificial faceplates. Okay, a sacrificial faceplate is one where you're going to sacrifice the faceplate for the bowl. Now, there are 2 ways to mount these things. You can mount it in a chuck like this one is, set up for a chuck, or you can mount it on a faceplate. The advantage of the sacrificial faceplate is that it holds the wood and then you don't have any screw holes. Now, this one is set up for using CA. And if you watch some of Lyle Jamison's videos, Lyle does this all the time. He uses a sacrificial faceplate on everything he does. Everything. And it's a slight dish right here that you turn on this. And then he puts CA around the edge. I think he uses thick, but medium thick will work. Thin, it might work, but it's hard. It's a lot harder to get the thin to work because it just goes in so fast. And then to break the joint, okay, let's say we got a piece like this. You just put a chisel in the joint between this and the bowl, right there, and give it a tap, and it breaks the joint. CA has tensile strength, but not, gosh, what's the other one? The other direction. Anyway, no shear strength. So it'll come right off. Now, every now and then you'll pull some grain. Usually it does not. And something I did on some of mine was I put a little wedge in here, cut a little wedge so I could put a wedge in it and knock it out, but you don't really need that. That's the first ones I did. But that's sacrificial faceplates.
You put that on before you start doing any turning.
Right. I mean, this is what you're mounting with in the chuck, let's say. This replaces your chuck. Another way you can do this is, well, there's 2 ways actually. One is with the old paper technique. Those of you not familiar, you use a paper bag. You can use newspaper, but it's a little more difficult. And use wood glue. And you glue this onto the base of your bowl. And then you split that paper. Or you can just glue it on with wood glue. Then just turn it off when you fix your bottom of your bowl. When you reverse your bowl and dress the bottom up. Let's see. All right. Question.
I got a bunch of 1 1/4 nuts and glued them into wood block, made all kind of jam chucks and glue blocks out of that. And when the glue block gets short, I just glue another piece of wood on the face of it with wood glue and good to go.
Yeah, you can continue to use the sacrificial face plates. All you have to do is dress it off and start over. Uh, this is an elliptical chuck. This is Ron Brown's version of an elliptical chuck. Uh, I don't use this much, but it does have a balance problem. It's preferable to use a small chuck on these. I haven't got a small chuck. But the chuck screws on right here. And you've got these holes that you can do a tremendous difference in it. And somebody's come out with the idea of putting a balance weights, and I think Ron Brown has actually added balance weights. You can do offset with weights on this side to make it not so bad. You have to turn it slow. Anytime you're doing anything like this, out of balance, you have to be careful about getting too fast. But this is another way to get those, and gosh, I should have brought a piece. I've got some that I actually turn a platter and then put it on this and cut some rings in it. That's one thing you can do with it. You can also make the little pendants like Don does, but Don's got his own little chuck that he made. I guess you're still using that, aren't you? Or you buy one? That chuck you use for your pendants,
Oh, yeah.
you still use?
All center hole.
Yep.
I've got one that I made and I've got one that I bought. I used the one that I made 99 faster.
Yeah. There's a lot of options out there. This is just one for using larger stuff. Most of the elliptical chucks are designed for small stuff, but this one's designed for big ones. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Bill, to you, sorry I'm not a member, but going back to the glue thing,
Uh-huh.
What about using hot glue?
Yeah, you can use hot glue.
Just heat it
Yeah.
off without any-
There's some people that do that. I haven't had good luck with hot glue myself. But yes, there's a lot of, and matter of fact, I think Jameson talks about hot glue on his
hot glue.
hide glue.
Hot glue.
Okay, any glue will work, but now remember, hide glue is okay. It's temporary. You can release the hold, and I've never heard anybody turners do that, but that's kind of a long process to use hide glue. Any glue would work, yes, and with hide glue you can release it with heat. I believe I'm right. I've never used any, but I've used to do furniture, so I know what all that is. Yes, sir.
I use high glue on a lot of other high glue first, but you need at least 24 hours cure time on high glue.
Which in a way that defeats what we turners do. Hey, we're fast, instant gratification people. Okay, this is something that not very many people have one of these. Matter of fact, I got this from an estate sale. This is a collet chuck. You got all of these collets. Oh, collet. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm from Louisiana. That's my excuse. You can give me camera one? Not working? Oh, okay. This part here screws out, and there's a little wrench. I don't think this is the original wrench that goes with it, but anyway, this little wrench will tighten it. I've not had really good luck with it because your piece has got to fit in here pretty good, and you see the slots that you've got to tighten up. A collet, similar to what Rory was talking about, but this is a manufactured set. And you could use this to turn finials. You just have to have it sized to go in here. I mean, you got what? Look at that. What is that one? That's 5/16. So there's another option. Okay, let's see. I think I got one more thing. Okay. I'm going to lay it down like that so you can see it on camera. There are some people that like to use this for their hollowing. Mainly it was invented for spindle work. It's a steady rest. Now, there's lots of configurations of this. This is homemade, of course. 3 wheels is usually sufficient. If you get 4, it's hard to get them to balance right. There's also some that use 2, and the basic idea of the 2-wheel is it goes on the backside. Matter of fact, one way makes the 2-wheel. It goes on the backside, and your pressure is this way. So those are the things that you can do with it. For long spindles, this is indispensable. If you're doing something the length of this lathe plus, you need a steady, unless you are really, really good. And I'm not that good with spindles. But this fits in the waves and tightens up. This is actually for my Powermatic. I made it for a 14-inch lathe, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to make another one because I don't use it on hollow forms. Like I said, there's some people that actually use them on bowls. You can do that. But I consider that extra step that's not really necessary. But that's a steady rest. There are lots of plans out there. If you'll Google steady rest, you'll find plans that's the wheels. These are skateboard wheels or skate wheels, inline skates. You can actually order these if you can't find an old skate to take them off of, and they're, gosh, what, $3 or $4 a piece, something like that. Yeah.
Earlier, Sammy mentioned face plates. I think we probably all have got one. It seems not many folks use them. This is a good use if you've got one laying around your shop, a good way to put it to use. This is a Glenn Lucas piece. He's got a video on YouTube you can watch. It's about 7 or 8 minutes, very easy to make. This is for rechucking the green bowls. We talked about that earlier. Very simple to make, a couple pieces of MDF. I marked center out on mine so I could line this faceplate up remotely close. It doesn't have to be exact because I'm going to true it up on the lathe before we try this. See if that's better. True it up on the lathe before I used it. So I screwed the faceplate on here, cut it out rough on the bandsaw. It's got 2 other pieces of MDF that were on here before I cut it out. Just roughed the circle out. It screws onto the lathe. Then I just trued it up so it would spin true. This rubber that's on here is just a corrugated rubber you can get from Lowe's or Home Depot. It's a common bench covering material for a workbench. It's found in the flooring section. It's sold by the foot on a roll. I think I bought a piece big enough to make 3 or 4 of these for like $2. It's almost nothing. And that's just glued on this top piece with the laminate glue. Spray, roll, whatever laminate glue, and then just trim that to fit. So one of the problems that we have with a green bowl, if you've done twice turn bowls, you know once they dry, the rim tends to warp. All right, if you look at where the heart of the tree ran, oftentimes that bowl will have a hump in it. All right, so it's hard to get that trued back up. This cutaway in the center is where that spot goes. You can leave that in the center. That high spot falls in the hole here, so the rim sits flat on both sides. Now the one that Glenn Lucas makes has got a smaller, maybe a little bigger opening than this. I made this one big. I had this same lathe. I made a bigger one because I've got a bigger bowl back here that I brought that's a little more warped. This one is not too bad. But you can put this back on here and it's a friction fit. It doesn't slip on the rubber, holds it very well, and you can retrue that tenon. Because a lot of times these tenons will warp. Sometimes on a big bowl like this one back here, the tenon will not only warp, but it'll actually move. It'll be offset to one side of the bowl. Now this one is a little tricky because the rim is warped in 2 directions. But you can put the bulk of the warp in this crack. Now this one here, you would probably want to true the tenon up and get the egg shape out of it, get it true enough to put in the chuck. I would probably true this rim up and then turn it back over before I finish the bottom of the bowl, before I true the back of the bowl up. Because this rim is warped in 2 different directions. So you're not going to get it to sit perfectly flat, but it is very tight and it's not going to come out, all right? Because you've got a good grip here on this corrugated rubber You got good pressure from the tailstock. So you can true this tenon back up and get it back round, because you don't want to put this in the chuck. I don't know if you can see this, but I marked this off before I left this morning. Got an overhead camera. See that shape? I marked that off with a square this morning. I just laid the square down the side and across here, and I marked the same mark on the square. That tenon is that egg-shaped. It is very, very out of round. So you would not want to put that back in the chuck like that. That needs to be trued back up first. I would true that up, put it in the chuck, and then face this off and get it back smooth, then turn it back around and reshape the back of the bowl to get it back true. This bowl here warped quite a bit. It's may not be savable. It's probably wasn't thick enough probably to save. It's moved quite a bit. But this thing is very easy to make, 30 minutes, and Glenn Lucas turns several hundred bowls a year, so he knows what he's doing on turning green bowls. This thing is easy to make. As far as truing a green bowl back up, this is the best thing I've found. Super fast, super easy.
What's the name of that?
I don't know if he has a name for it, Hamp, but you can look on YouTube for Glenn Lucas. He's got a video. It's about 7 or 8 minutes. Very easy to make. I put some spray adhesive, the contact adhesive between the MDF, and then I put screws in from the back as well. But this is, I'm like Sammy, I don't use the faceplate a whole lot. If you've got a faceplate, especially a bigger size faceplate, that's a good use for it. It's laying around the shop. I've got 2 of them. This is one of them, and the other one I've got a disc to make a disc sander out of. I put it on the lathe. It's got a 12-inch disc with a sticky pad on it, and I sand with it. But this is a good use for it. So put it on the MDF, rough out your circle, glue your piece on, and when you just true it up on the lathe, and then this just glues on. And again, it's very grippy. It holds the bowl. You put that high spot in that ridge, and you can true the back of it up and get it back true to turn. So it's if you're gonna do twice turn bowls, it's very good to have one of these.
You know, we're just as well on a one-time turning bowl or a jam chip type thing.
I'm sure you could if you wanted to do that. You could turn the majority of your tenon away. Go ahead, buddy.
I've glued a worked out pad, the mats that you use
Mm-hmm.
on a round board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Get it to
Kind of have some compression, yeah.
high and low spot.
Right.
Works out.
Yeah, the compression mat would probably do better for the ones like this that are warped in 2 directions. That would work. Most of the time, in my experience, they tend to warp they have one high spot right where the heart runs through, and that easily lays right in there. This one here lays up very flat, so they a lot of times will do very well. That's a piece of elm, and it had a lot of movement. I don't know if you've ever turned elm, but it had a lot of movement. But for the most part, these do really well in this, and it's very fast and very easy. So I don't do any production turning, but somebody like Glenn Lucas that turns. If you've ever watched any of his videos, he's got big boxes of shavings he just turns all day long. So a guy that's doing production turning and needs speed, this is nice. But I haven't found anything to me that's faster or more secure than this. It works very, very well. Very well. Very good. Yeah, this stuff here doesn't have a lot of compression, but it's a good grip, and it holds very well. This is just basically a workbench covering type stuff. It's very inexpensive, very inexpensive.
You got that like at Home Depot?
Yeah, Home Depot or Lowe's. It's in the section in our Lowe's in the back where the flooring's at, where you can buy the rubber mat material and carpet and all that. It's back there. It's on a roll. I think a piece about 1.5 feet or 2 foot wide and whatever the roll is long was like $2. It's very, very cheap. Very, very cheap. And it just glues on with laminate glue, and it's super easy. So, 30 minutes you make the whole thing, and it's you can use it from now on. But like I said, Glenn Lucas has a video if you want to check that out. It's 7 or 8 minutes long, very short, where he makes one. Said he's used it for years. So it's very, very easy to rechuck a green bowl. This one's about 5 inches. It doesn't matter. I think the one that Glenn has a bigger opening. Most of his bowls are salad bowls, so he has bigger bowls. But I wanted to make. He has a couple of different sizes of this. I wanted to just do one that I could do even the smaller bowls. So I made my opening a little smaller in here, just where you could use it for a small bowl. But I wanted to have one that was versatile for different sizes. But I think the size in here is irrelevant, just as long as you have something that will catch the rim on both sides. So.
What do you use for your drying technique on your?
Most of mine are just air dried. I'll put them in shavings for, for the first month or so, till they lose some of the moisture. I've got this same lathe, and I've got a shelf under the lathe under here that catches a lot of shavings and trash. And so a lot of times I will throw bowls in there and just pack the shavings around them for the first couple of months. And then I've got a wire rack that I will dry them on after they've lost a lot of their moisture initially. I'll stack them in the rack. That big elm bowl has been drying for over a year now. I turned it last January, so I need to put it back on the lathe and try to true it up. But I don't have a lot that are in the drying process, but I just cover them in shavings and leave them in the shop for the first month or so, and then once they've lost some of the initial moisture, I put them on the shelf. But anything else? All right, thank you.
One of the things you heard several
I was gonna bring a combination square, and I forgot to grab it. But one of the things, if you watch the Glenn Lucas video, he'll show you he uses just a regular small square, but a combination square works. He laid the blade of the square across the tenon and just let it catch on the side of the bowl, and he picked a number somewhere around the center, 7, 8 inches, whatever it is, and just put a mark, and he used that same number to mark on all 4 sides. And so you get 4 marks. And if you draw those lines off and you just cross them, cross them from corner to corner, you'll get the center. And you'll find this tenon is egg-shaped, but it didn't really shift a lot. But depending on where the blank was cut, sometimes that whole tenon may shift a 1/2 inch on the bowl blank. Well, you want to start back off in the center, so that center mark may not necessarily be where the nub was last time. Sometimes that whole tenon will move a little bit. If it dry, depending on if it's cut off center out of the tree, that whole tenon may shift on the bottom of the blank. So you might want to recenter it if it's way out. This one, it didn't move, but the bowl blank obviously is 3/4 out of round. It's pretty egg-shaped, so I may not have enough material to get it trued back up. But
Well, some of the stuff that I brought, everybody's already showed theirs. It's same as mine, so I've got a few that are a little bit different. Was talking earlier about, Rory was talking about the grip thing on his apron. Have you ever turned something that had a tenon on the back and had a tenon on the back like this, and you went to put it in your 4-jaw chuck and you turned it a little too small? You ever done that? Piece of PVC, like Rory had, just a piece of PVC, and cut it, and you can expand it out, bigger or smaller, and you can crimp it down. Another thing, and I don't know where I found this. This is a piece of rubber. I don't know if it went on pipes or what, but you can actually stretch it just a little bit and put it over something and clamp it down, and it'll allow your 4-jaw chuck to grip your piece. And sometimes if you've got a tenon on the back of it and you need to put it back on the chuck, and you don't want to damage that tenon or put marks in that tenon, just put that piece of PVC on there and tighten it down. And it's because this is cut back at an angle like this, this sharp edge is not going to damage that tenon on a bowl. If you had a foot, so to speak, on a bowl, it wouldn't damage that foot. It wouldn't put a dent in it. So that helps. I turn a lot of platters. And I make these things to use to put the platter on. I will take if this one is 10.5 inches in diameter roughly, and I'll take my compass, put it on there and draw it out. Well, then I go back where my compass made the little hole. I'll put a little bitty nail in there, cut it off and file it down to where it's just a little bitty point. Put that on your 4-jaw chuck, and then when you take the platter
and you're going to draw the platter off for 9 inches in diameter, and you do it with your compass, you make a little bitty hole when your compass pushes it. Well, that little bitty nail right here, when you turn that bowl blank around, or platter blank around, it's got that little bitty hole right in the center where your compass fit. You can set it up on here and move it around just a little bit, and it will fit right in that little nail, so you got it centered on here. When you pull this up, now you got it centered on the other side. Makes it a whole lot easier and a lot faster to get it centered on both sides. And so I've made, depending on the size platter, I've got some smaller than this, I've got some bigger than this. Just depends on what size platter it is. Another thing I do, of course, I've got wood screws on here, but I glue this piece on and turn it. When I put it in the 4-jaw chuck and I get everything round, before I take it out, I go here and I number where the chuck fits, where the grooves in the chuck. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I go back to put it on, this number 1, where it says 1 right here, it's going to fit where this jaw on your chuck is number 1. It's going to go right there. It'll put it right back in the same groove. If you try to turn it this way and go in a different groove, it may wobble a little bit. If you put it back in the same groove every time, you're not as likely to get a wobble on it. So that's another little thing that helps that I do. I've made a few duck calls at times. Big ones, real ones, not artificial ones. This goes in the 4-jaw chuck. It's also numbered where it will go back in the same grooves every time. You drill your 5/8 inch hole through this piece, shove it up on there. You can bring your tailstock up and go right into that little bitty hole right here. And when you push that tailstock up on it, it will spread it just a little bit and tighten it up. Then you can turn this real easy. Now, you've got this piece and you're fixing to turn the mouthpiece, if I can get it out of here. You want to turn that mouthpiece with this in it. You can put this in a 4-jaw chuck, like you would use for doing ink pens or something, little small jaws. You can slide that up in the 4-jaw chuck. You've got this hole drilled and push it up on there, and it's tapered. So when you push it up on it, it'll tighten up, and you can make this piece. And you can push it up on there tight enough. One of the keys to turning stuff like this, to keep it from getting out of whack, just like we're talking about turning long stuff, you need something in the middle to hold it. To me, that's real important, but the other real important thing is having a sharp tool. Let the tool do the cutting. Don't push it and force it to cut. Make sure your tool is really sharp, and don't overdo it. If it feels like it's getting a little bit slow, stop and sharpen it again. It makes a whole lot of difference. There's nothing like a sharp tool, nothing like a dull tool to hurt you too. So then that piece will go back in there, and then it's just wedged in there. So that's a little jig that I just keep around to make bigger duck calls and real duck calls. Now, as y'all have seen, I make these little, what I call zipper pulls. They look like duck calls. This will go in the 4-jaw chuck. There again, it's numbered, so it goes back in the 4-jaw chuck. Goes back in the 4-jaw chuck on here. This goes back in the 4-jaw chuck and tightens down. This piece right here has got a washer inside that fits this. Screw that on there. The ideal thing is to have this come up, and you want it to fit right there, just like that. When you take that little duck call here, you started off with a piece of wood that's 3/4 inches square and 1 7/8 inches long, which these are. You got to drill a 1/4 inch hole in this end and a 1/4 inch hole in this end. That's the most critical part. If you don't get the 1/4 inch hole lined up from one end to the other, then you got a problem. It'll be all, you can turn it, but it'll be off center. This won't be in the center right here. This one might be in the center, and this one won't be. So that is the most critical thing that I have ever run into in my life, is trying to get those holes dead center in that block of wood so that they line up here. Once you get that lined up, then you can put this on here, bring this up, put your little block of wood through there, push these 2/4 inch pins up into the block of wood, and then you can turn this. Once I get it set up, I can turn this in 5 minutes and be through with it. Now, one of the things that happens when you're turning these ends, tapering them down, you're going to damage this piece of wood right here, this 1/4 inch here that fits up in there. So the best thing to do is drill a hole 1/4 inch and just cut this long enough to where it sticks out like that. I'm kind of getting it up in the middle here. I apologize for that.
You don't drill that hole like you do a pin
You put this in here like this, put your drill in here, and bring it up and drill that hole in this piece right here.
Is that just a piece of dowel?
It's a piece of 1/4 inch dowel. Now you got to be careful when you go to buy a piece of 1/4 inch dowel, because some of them not a 1/4 inch. You drill that hole a 1/4 inch, this don't work. It's okay if it's a little bit big, because you can taper it right here with a piece of sandpaper on this end and start it, and you can drive it up in there. Now, when you're cutting it, I don't know if you can see this or not. Whoop, let me get up here. Can you see the grooves in it right here where I've cut it with the, trying to get the light on it to where the grooves show up. You can see some grooves in it right there. Anyway, you'll damage this end of it sometimes with your tool that you're tapering down with. Well, when you damage that and it starts getting bad, just pull it out and turn it around, stick the bad part in there, and start over again. And it's just a way of not having to make another one of these every time. If you made this and turned that down to a 1/4 inch and messed it up, then you'd have to make this whole thing again. The piece that fits on this, the piece that fits on this that's coned right here, that has a cone, I don't see one. Well, a little bitty one. It's like this. It's small. It's small, and it screws on there. You can take that cone and you can push it up in the hole right there just a little bit. Got to be real careful with your tool when you're tapering down and coming into that to not get into that cone. But that cone is aluminum anyway. But after you mess it up for a while, you could clean it up or just go buy a new one. This works pretty good. That's what I wanted to see right there. That's what I wanted to see. I like that. I'm going to have to order some of those. That would go right up and fit there, and you're not going to cut down into it.
What is that? We can't see it. I can't see
This,
it.
it's
Is that a point?
it's a point that you said Cindy Joseph sells these?
Oh, now, okay, now.
Yeah.
I see it now.
Yeah, that's unique. I need to order some of those because I do turn a lot of these. Like I say, it doesn't take long and it's fun to do. So
There are a lot of points on the market, and I ordered some, but they won't fit in that, live center.
yeah, okay.
But that one's perfect.
Well, I'm gonna get me some of those now. I don't know if you've ever. I used to turn hearts.
Hey, Tom,
Yes.
go too far. Back on your dilemma with drilling the holes, exactly,
Mm-hmm.
right, how did you overcome that? Which one?
I have not overcome it. I just try to get better every time I do it. I've even built jigs to take that block of wood that's 3/4 by 3/4 and put in that jig. Well, you still got to line it up right dead center under that drill press. And I mean, it don't have to be off a 32nd or a 64th of an inch, and it's not going. I'll pass this around and you can look at this one. You can see that this one is not on center. As hard as I tried, the holes are not on center.
Are you using any kind of special drill bit? Like
I try to use the sharpest Forstner drill bit that I've got.
Can you drill straight through the whole thing from one end instead of both ends? Pin blank?
I've thought about that. In fact, we were talking about that this morning. It's still going to come out like this. If it's your block of wood is straight and your hole would come out this way, which is still going to make it off up here. I don't know. I'm going to try that and see, but I've not been able to do that yet. But if your drill bit is not real sharp, it's going to follow that grain, and I don't care what you do, it ain't going in straight. Ain't going in straight. It's not going to do it.
Try a point.
I take the square block of wood and I cross it up and find the point. I take a real sharp needle-like, that's just as sharp as I can get it, and I get it under the magnifying glass and I try to start that hole. And so help me, it still don't come out right sometimes.
I meant drill bit with a point, drill bit.
That little Forstner bit's got that little bitty point right in the center, and I try to fit it right in that little bitty hole. And sometimes it just moves. I don't know why. I've thought about going to a machine shop and getting them to make me something. I don't know what to make it work. Hmm?
Get a piece of oak or maple or something.
Yeah.
Get on the maple saw, make you a beat block,
Yeah.
where you can center it in the beat block, clamp it on.
Well, it's still got to sit up and come down this way. It's got to.
You start with a smaller drill bit.
You know, you could use the,
Tried that.
like a center bit.
No, but that little drill bit might, but that little needle that I start right in the center where I've marked it pretty much gives me the center.
And then like Bill said, use the centering bit to center your
Yeah,
That
Yeah.
way, that you give them different sizes. If they're real solid,
Mhm.
short, they won't move.
right, yeah. The shorter the bit,
Start your hole
yeah,
perfectly centered,
yeah.
then you
It's still difficult, believe me. I have turned hundreds of these things, and it's difficult.
Could you just forego the whole, turn that down just like that? Just drill one side?
Well, you've got to put it in here some way to hold it to keep it from spinning. And when you put those dowel sticks up in those holes and push it together, then it locks it down, and you take your skew and round it and then start doing it.
Are you selling them or giving them
Just depends on what mood I'm in.
away? The person who I'm getting at
Yeah, but I would care. I don't want to give something away that's not good. Yeah, okay, if you say so. Several years ago, I started turning hearts, and this is one that I played with. You can see that it's a round ring, and this one is actually two pieces of wood glued together, and then cut a piece out of them and put them up on a stand, you know, like this, and let them sit up like this or whatever, you know, make them look a little nicer. So I was trying to figure out how to do this, so I made me a block here. I turned this first on one side and get this make a template first. Make a template first. This would be the heart. Cut it out. Then you can, when you turn the round block of wood before you put it in the jig, you try to get this piece on it like this to where it fits. Now, once you get that done on one side, and go back and make this jig, take this other piece and put it in here like this. Well, this one's better. This one's better. It fits. I don't know if you can see. It fits in this groove. It's the same size groove. It's almost right there. Can you see that? And then turn that groove. Then take this piece, once you get this groove turned to where it matches this piece, I go in there and put double-sided tape around on it. I've got two pieces of double-sided tape under this one. You can't hardly get it off. And I've never had one to come off. Of course, I put a lot of double-sided tape on it. Once you get one side of it turned, put it in here, then you come back and turn this side down to the point to get it level. But this jig it holds it in there, and I hold it with double-sided tape. I've never had one to come off. I've been lucky.
Full ring, though, not just that partial where you're doing.
Yeah, it's the whole ring. And once I get it, the whole thing turned, you can't see the heart in it. But once you cut it in two, then now you got a heart. So I haven't done that in a while too, but.
So you lined up when you flip it on the other side. Keep it lined.
Once you get one side of it turned, then you turn this to match that one side. Then you put it back up here. You've already got, let's see, where's the camera at? You've already got this side right here turned on the inside that fits against this. This is square over here. You know where the center is because you've turned it down to the center on one side. And then you just glue it back in there, put it up here. You've already got this side turned down, turned this side back into here. You following me? It's kind of difficult to explain, but if I had a piece that was perfectly round to bring and show you, but I didn't. So, but the, go ahead.
Start off with kind of a bowl blank.
Yeah, just a round bowl blank. Yeah, and turn it down to where the center's gone out of it, or gone almost all the way through, and then when you turn it around, is enough of it gone out here that it fits down over this piece, and fits in there like that. So you've already turned this inside piece. But like I say, it's just a jig. It's just a jig to hold it, and I hold it with double-sided tape, and I've never had a problem with it.
I assume you cut that heart in 10 pieces for a necklace or something?
Do what now?
You cut the heart into thin pieces?
Well, you could. I've never thought of that. I just had them cut down into a piece bigger than this, you know, that came around kind of 3/4 of the way around, drilled a hole in it and put it on a stand. And I've sold them, I don't know, 2 or 3 of them at times, and I just call it, you know, here's my broken heart. It's not really broken, it's cut. Here's my cut heart.
That's what my ex-wife was.
Yeah. And let's see. I keep a lot of these things. If I'm doing something, there's a piece that fit in a pin jaws because it's real small, and I turned it down to exactly 3/4 of an inch. If I need to jam something up on it, I got a drawer full of these things. This is in the 4-jaw chuck. If I need to jam something up on it that's round, I can put the piece over it here. I can stick this piece on this end and bring it right up here, or I can take a piece like this and just put over it, bring it up here, then I can turn this piece right in here. But I must have, this one is 3/4, this one's 5/8, I've got them 7/8, I've got them 1 inch, and my lathe's got a little drawer right here on the tailstock, and it's full of these things. I've got boxes of all different sizes, and you know, because you never know when you're going to need one. You don't have to stop and make another one. Just go digging through the box till you find one. And it's a good thing to do with your scraps. There's a piece that I made to go on this end, which would go up in that little duck call and hold it. And if you were to cut this down and damage it, you could always take it off, put it back in the 4-jaw chuck, and smooth it back down this way. Because I made it big enough that I can clean it up and make it work again. And it's made out of Bodock, so it's real hard. It doesn't get damaged real easy. Hmm. What now?
Take an edge off.